Dear friends, and we continue. And we have one of the major points of the Congress, the Scientific Symposium, the Round Table, the Secret Doctrine, Book of the... And we are studying the Volume 1, Stanza 1, Sloka 5. The mediator is Vladimir Yary, head of the Moscow School of Theosophy. Well, the thought of the day, according to Blavatsky, is the following. She says, we need to think about the mind by the wise deeds. This is the thought of the day. And I'm going to show you the comparison of Nidans, the wheel of the law. We are living in the epoch of Aquarius. Hierophant of the sector of the constellation is the blue monkey. The blue monkey, the monkey is the symbol of beauty, and the blue symbolizes the element of air. So it's the cognitive abilities of human being, the thinking abilities. The epoch of Aquarius tells us about the creation of the astral complete body that is able to enter thin layers, the astral world, but the highest level of it, or the astral light, if you like. This epoch is in front of the constellation of Lion, of Leo. There we can see the hierarchy of various creatures, the teachers of humanity. According to this will, the will of gods that are reflected in the plane of the materials, in the constellation of the Virgo, there we can see the powers that are able to create new germs of consciousness. These are the Libra constellations, and this will of God's helps us to individualize our reflection. In other words, it's the space gives us the sign that each of us, through our own activities, should manifest our creative force, our individual kind of force. And in order for it to be possible, we needed to accept these sacred powers. And right now, this is the year of the black tiger, and it tells us that it is the birth of the new spiritual human being, with all the potency of those powers that were acquired by the free will. Without discipline, it was not possible to do that. In order to create new astral body, you need discipline. Discipline makes our will just. It makes it courageous. It makes us ready for great deeds. So this is the epoch of Aquarius that we're entering. It enables us to understand why we are entering it. We're changing our desires. They are of the high level for the common good. And we follow the will of your God. In other words, we respect other people. And by respecting other people, we can cooperate. This epoch of cooperation is the epoch that we're living in. We are uplifting our fiery nature, our thought, spiritual thought, and thus we are able to update our astral body. The age is the age of the white dragon. The symbol of the white dragon tells us about the complete wisdom. The color, the white color, tells us about the condensation, or about the possibility to implement ideas or achieve the goal that we are trying to reach. This age, we have this possibility, so we can manifest, or rather we can express wisdom. We can implement the tasks for each day, and by doing so we can implement the idea of self-improvement. And just the opposite, we can see the white dog. It's the symbol of the month. The month and the age reflect each other. And in order to understand the notion of wisdom and to implement it, to express it, we need the personality. The dog symbolizes, as Nidana, the personality that is strong, and the strength should be directed in the right way. It should be stable. The worldview should be stable, and it can be stable only when we have applied discipline to our personality. Without discipline, there wouldn't be any wisdom expressed. The week is the week of the red goat. The red goat is in the ray of time, and the whole week we're talking about this. We've been talking about this time, the quality of this time, its properties, and what we can do with our nature in order for the quality of time to improve. Our thought should be uplifted, and only then the time and its quality improves. And for that we need the love of the spirit, and goat is the symbol of that. In front of the goat we have Yama, God, the fiery Taurus that tells us about the implementation of love of the spirit. If this implementation takes place, then the human being becomes the winner. He wins over Yahweh, God. He becomes endless. The understanding of the laws of time, the absolute laws, makes us endless. The days of the red monkey, and that's very important. Yesterday we had love, but today we have the fiery monkey. The fiery monkey is the symbol of Kundalini Shakti. It's the force that is in the form of the snake. It's at the foundation of the spine, and we need to strengthen up and uplift this snake. But in front of it there is a tiger, the fiery tiger. It is the joy. We needed to be born in the spirit. The symbol of the tiger is the birth. If we are born within the symbol, the Kundalini snake is uplifted, and the centers, they are in harmony within us. And the internal human being is no more than nothing else but consciousness and mind. And I'd like to point out that here we looking at the wheel of time that symbolizes the human being. Those are you, not the external form that we have. We're talking about the consciousness. Theosophy is always about the consciousness. If we draw parallels from consciousness, if we think according to the consciousness of human beings, not the forms, not the feelings, not the desires, then, according to this image, you will, with the help of this image, you'll be able to find the right approach to study yourself, because you will study the human being, or the consciousness that develops according to particular rules and laws. The 12 nidanas are the reasons and causes. What do we need to learn? The reasons, origins of existence. Each nidana has those reasons. If we are born in a particular nidana, we can find ourselves, and in accordance with this nidana, we can see our purpose. What shall we adapt to? What shall we develop in ourselves? I was born in the blue goat. The blue goat symbolizes yesterday. Kriya Shakti is its force, and it's the force of a clear thought, which is born only when there's selfless love. Towards what? Towards the absolute truth, the absolute laws. And they have the darkness of the soul as well, which is the cause of suffering. But for me not to suffer, we need to strive towards the absolute truth. And if my striving to the absolute truth exists, then it means that I implement the karma, my law, the law of my free will. And by doing so, I am in line with the law of life and the law of death. And by doing so, I am able to become reborn. It's the second birth. Each of us can find their own principle, and according to that, we can know for sure what we are and who we are. So let's look at stanza 1, Sloka 5. Darkness alone filled the boundless all, for father, mother, and son were once more one, and the son had not awakened yet for the new wheel and his pilgrimage thereon. It's amazing. I've already told you the traveling around this wheel, but it didn't exist because father, mother, and son were once more one. They were in the darkness for the consciousness, for the mind. Our mind is the darkness. And in this darkness, there were three. For those who understand it, it is light. For those who are learning, it's semi-darkness. It's the twilight zone. So let's... thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. Dear friends, so we're starting the Scientific Symposium, Sloka 5, Stanza 1, Dzyan. Today we have a scientific and research group. All the speakers are here. They will present the materials, comments regarding the Sloka. In online format, we have Mr. Ukhan, the PhD in philosophy, humanitarian sciences. So Frank Reuter Mayer, the researcher. Also we have Taken Brigitte, Theosophical Society of France, Lodge Blavatsky, Michelina Foster, California. The fifth Sloka, the first Stanza says, darkness alone filled the boundless soul for father, mother, and son, who once more one. For the son had not awakened yet, for the new
mother
wheel
and the son
his
were united
pilgrimage, therefore.
New way of the which is there. And preliminarily, I would like to clarify the following issue. When we prepared this Congress and the timetable, we have the prologue, first stanza, first sloka, second, third, fourth, etc. Of course, I did not know then that the Congress, the sixth Congress in Nizhny Novgorod, will be devoted to Mr. Bakanov, and that we shall be studying time, the time chakra, and the wheel. And before the beginning of preparing for the Congress, 6 months before, there was a thought of devoting the round table to the study of time. And I believe that the secret doctrine was there, that we do not get it. And it was my surprise when I looked at the release, how does it work along the sequence. And it turned out that it itself is time. This is how energy acts. And we do not do this on purpose. We move on in a Congress. And it is, we did not really need to change the symposium. So we will facilitate this issue. It is a unique event of 2020. And it makes sense to discuss the issues from the first to the fifth sloka. So we concentrate on the materials of the secret doctrine. And from the first sloka to the 15th. The pre-mother who gives birth from her shrouds. This was the first sloka. There was no time. It was in the in time, in the inside of it. And there was the third sloka goes. There was nobody for the birth of suffering. So here we form in this the fifth sloka when the darkness filled the infiniteness. Why? Because father, mother, and son were united. What does it mean? We understand that it is a certain time period which contains, and these cycles of the Pralamantara, as long as Manvantara goes on. Today, Mr. Ashupkin and in my presentation, and our speakers who spoke yesterday, there was the idea of this, how it works towards each other. There is the force of love or magnet. It is great love. Two great love, the principles, the maternal and paternal principles. And it is the new content which helped us move in the sequence of cycles. But the same happens in the universe when it is created. And this acts during the period of time and length, longevity. And it shows a unity of father and mother. And once again, the continuation of eternal cycles of time and the sequence of the Pralaya Manvantara. And the sun had not yet awakened for the new wheel and his pilgrimage thereon. The sun is the ray, the third movement, the third logos. And we can speak about the mind and creation, about the chakra which predetermines the notion and the travel in this area, all this idea. In this concept, if we view it, we can make an understanding that the sun is the wheel, actually. The wheel is the beginning of this time. The sun is who determines the time for this cycle. He had not appeared yet, because it was still the pralaya time, the first station. The whole first station is the pralaya. The second stanza is the continuation of pralaya. The third stanza is what focuses on the unity of the first through stanza. What for? For one critical point, the central point, which is where we start counting from. Counting what? Time. An amazing mystery in the third shloka, when differentiation starts. But for this, we need to still live to this. So when we are in the vibration of the first stanza, we understand that it did not happen yet. More than once in our workshops, we mentioned that in studying the secret doctrine, we need systematicism. What does systematicism give us? First of all, the planes of being. Do you see everything? According to the planes of being, it's very easy. We have already discussed it today. The first stanza is focused here, in the very beginning. It's the most divine energy, very delicate. But when we mention this word, the holy word, we take off this stupor of stupefying, and we manifest our imagination. We understand that what happens there is what will be manifested. Any thought will be sooner or later materialized. Now this thought was easy. It should start, the Manvantara should begin. Who begins this? The Manvantara, the sun. Practically, we speak about the secret color chakras. It did not wake up for the traveling in this wheel. And this is why we can say how it's going to happen. And this is how it will be. There will be a full reflection of the non-manifested and the manifested. When during full manifestation, it will shine with all these truths. And this plane, the plane of mind and creativity, will give birth to this sun. It is called the plane of reason. And we can say that the sun, who did not come for the traveling along this new wheel, it is still covered by these shrouds. It is not yet manifested. And the universal mind has not yet reflected in the inner being of the person. If we keep this in mind, think how strong the human mind will be when human mind can be reflected in the inner mind or in the notion which is concealed by the mind, and a human becomes divine. We see it not only in Yelena Blavatsky's works, Dostoevsky, Pushkin, Tolstoy mentioned in their works, and many other people who knew what they were talking about, people who created a genius master work called an Ode to God. Now, in this point, the second plane, the divine plane, is where the monadic internal notion is gathered. When we speak about the fifth shloka, we shall know what to speak about. Who are these three? Mother, father, and son. They have gathered in the inner part, in the internal point. This is the magical concealed part. This stays in the concealed space. Let us see, where is it reflected? Where can we see it? And if we move further on, it sees its reflection, the tetragrammaton. Here it goes. Here is the plane of our manifestations. Now look how this happens. Here's the triangle on the top, which symbolizes the triangle going to the top. It is the Trinity. It needs to turn over. It needs to fall. 3 falls into 4. It turned totally over, and it went into a more dense state of matter. And here it was created. It was a critical point which united these two. Now the next issue, the third component. If we speak about Father, Mother, and Son, it's the plane of images. And here is the face of the Sphinx. Here is the program. Brahma does not begin evolution. In other issues, it hints that the Pata Brahma is not manifested, Brahma or Brahman. There are different translations, but the state of this notion is the same. Now Brahma is manifested. Now, if you view it in this context, Brahma begins evolution on the plane of the pre-image, gathering here this point, this wonderful foursome of light. Here it just becomes the Fahat, and this is a full reflection of Fahat on the physical plane where we are. This is our universe, our sun. This is what will wake up on the wheel in this eternal traveling along the wheel. It is limited in time of this world, but in the non-manifested image, it will be limited here. In the Tumavrakti, in the Akashi state of the first aspect, the internal form is endless. And this is how, by similar images, we can mention this. And this is how we can describe the fifth shloka. Here are several thoughts. And we can continue. I can keep talking for a long time, but I would like to hear other opinions. And I would like to pass on the word to Sergei Frantsuzov, a doctor of historical sciences, St. Petersburg. Applaud. Thank you for being with us. The floor is yours. But this is really important. I would like to pay attention to the following. The original language of the secret doctrine is English. With all respect to Yelena, during translation there are always some nuances. And here I would like to draw attention to the fact that when we say the traveling, it is more of a pilgrimage in English. In Russian, this traveling cannot have a purpose or a goal. It can be like wandering, while pilgrimage is an intent movement towards a certain goal. It's a cycle. This is what I would like to pay attention to. It is a pilgrimage. It's like when pilgrims go, Christian or Buddhist pilgrims, they know where they're going, what for, what's the way they're following. Of course, they are travelers, but it's a different kind of traveling than when a person just wanders around. Thank you very much. Yes, we know the translation of the English doctrine, and as when Helena Rarick wrote that it is traveling, she meant something totally different. I'm not arguing, I'll just like to clarify. What is a pilgrimage? A pilgrimage predetermines the physical form. A pilgrimage is something of a sacrifice. There is a notion which pre-envisages the movement of the pilgrim, of their life. It's to pay homage to something. Here, when we say, what is stanza 1? There is no mind as yet. There was only the darkness. And we are speaking about the absolute principle. There is no mind. It has not been born yet. So Yelena chooses this notion of traveling, of being on one's way. Who are wanderers in this aspect? There is a certain eternity. There was what differs light from darkness? It is light. There's no different notion. When light appears, we have this is how it works. In this context, we have this idea of traveling, which predetermines a non-manifested condition. This non-manifested state in mind, which will be manifested later. And this issue is very important. In this case, this manifestation, it's not paying homage to some object or something like that. It's not a pilgrimage. You know who we pay homage to? To the non-manifested first absolute, to themselves. It is absolutely reflected. This object does not exist yet. It reflects in itself. It is the state of absolute light. So Yelena, under the leader of Mahatma M, translated the doctrine. It is the best translation. In order to understand the difference from the word-by-word translation, and we had such an experience. We read the secret doctrine in a word-by-word translation. Who was it who wrote the last secret doctrine that gives the translation? Mr. Bazyukin was a translator. It's just impossible to read him. It does not make sense. There are no words, there are no nuances which show all the peculiar features of this traveling, no spirituality. It's a technocratic language. It is imageless, as Vladimir hints. And I see that a person with PhD in mathematical sciences, Mr. Turley, who graduated from the Moscow State University, would like to say something. Graduated from Flying Colors. What would you like to say? I'd just like to clarify a bit. In fact, the word pilgrimage has another meaning in English. The second meaning is the course of life, the way of earth alive. So at the blend of these notions, sometimes pilgrimage is translated as traveling in order to pay homage to a religious object. And this is already similar to wandering or nomads. And the translator could afford this. So the difference in translations from ancient, from English to Russian exists in the first slokas, in the first stanzas. For example, we speak about the eternal parent, while in the Russian version, it is the mother who is giving birth. But later, in the later slokas, it is actually the parent. It is something universe, something in between father and mother. And Yelena also clarifies this. So she keeps this in mind. She did not make the parent a mother consciously. So there are certain nuances. And we need to have our own understanding in this. Yes, we need to have a systemic understanding. You know, when we build the foundation of the system, and you know for sure at which plane is the fifth shloka and stanza, then you can think. And at this scientific symposium, we have been thinking. Nothing has been added to the light to make it secret, to make it darkness at our light, and nothing is added to darkness to make it light. Then what? How does it start? And why, when this sun will happen? Because all of this has an evolutionary need of the cycle. This is an answer to this. As soon as we get the evolution need of the mandala cycle, nothing is added either to light or to darkness. This is the notion of bowing down to oneself, the most clear and when we speak about Earth. So this is the evolutionary need. We would like to listen to Sergei Rashupkin, PhD, St. Petersburg.
Dear colleagues, so I would like to start with the conception of time in accordance with modern physics. So starting from the ancient Greeks, how we understood time, well, I can say, is vague. I want to remind you that our civilization understands reality with abstractions. Our mind creates abstracts, and time is also an abstract. Time is the frequency, as we call it in physics. So time is a concept that is tied to, can be tied to any cyclical concept. It's not just movement, because movement can be linear and it has no ties with time. You know that the human body, every part of your body, your heart, for example, has its own frequency, and your aura has 7 chakras, each of which has its own frequency of movement. A healthy person is a harmonious person, and all of your frequencies are in harmony. And when you are sick, this harmony is disrupted. A difficult question. Some people say that time exists, while others claim that no, it doesn't exist. Why do we have this dichotomy? I'm not disagreeing with HPB, but at some critical points of your life, the time seems to slow down, stop even. And any clairvoyant, at time when it understands everything, claims that it's like time has slowed down. And many people say that there is no time after death. Yeah, this is correct. But when there is no time, there is no physical cycle. And when a person moves to another cycle of time, to a higher frequency, when you understand the world, you trespass, you exceed your own mind, you go to a higher frequency. And those physical frequencies in the material world are really slow at that point. And then a clairvoyant person understands the world at a different frequency. And if you allow me to say, yesterday we had a foreign speaker that said that at the moment of death, a moment before your death, you can see your whole life run before your eyes. This tells that the time just becomes unclear. It stops. Why does it happen? Spontaneous. Why do you spontaneously see your whole life before your eyes at the moment of death? Well, esoteric literature has an answer. Really, when you come into contact with other people, you exchange energies that come through your belly button. And over the course of your life, your aura extracts and sees different auras of animals, and parts of your aura are left with other people that you meet throughout your life. So when you die, what you see is the energy you've collected throughout your life. And that's when you come to a new plane of existence. But of course, this process can be absolute. Archimedes, for example, said that you need to reflect on your life before you go to sleep. So I would like to thank all the participants of the Congress and our organizers. This was great. Unfortunately, I have to go because I have a train to catch. I hope we'll meet soon again, and especially at the 7th Congress in Moscow. Thank you. Sergey Pavlovich, thank you. And we continue our scientific symposium. Now, you'll hear Mr. Hwang. Hwang, you're here. Please share your opinion about this stanza.
Hello, friends. We are talking about stanza 1, Sloka 5. The very important idea is in the concept of darkness, I think in scientific world, there's a big dilemma today. The supernova, which is which called 1A, it was observed explosion. So supposedly based on the theory of general relativity, it will be speed decreasing. With the expanding, but with the deceleration. But they observed, it keep accelerating. So it is a dilemma with the theory of Newtonian gravity. So they introduced another concept. That is the dark matter and the dark energy. So dark energy, they attract the exploding matters from the supernova. So the keep acceleration, it works, but there is nothing information about the dark matter or dark energy. We don't know. Only thing we know is that it has a gravity. So today, if there is no dark matter, we have to throw away the theory of gravitation, Newtonian theory. Also, we have to throw away the theory of general relativity. But we don't know about the dark matter. We don't know about nothing. Never. We don't know, no observation, no information about dark matter, dark energy. But we know in the theosophical area, we know the darkness. I don't know the relation darkness and dark matter, but we have a concept of darkness concept. This is maybe give some clue about the dark matter. So in secret doctrine, which is Sloka 5, today's title, Stanza 1, we know about the darkness. It says the root of the world, or the absolute being resident of absolute being. Absolute being is equal to God in Christianity. So if we died, we go back, our soul go back to darkness. We call the Paranishpanna. Our body, yesterday I told about that. Our body has no essence, right? So our body may be changed to another thing, but our soul goes back to the darkness after died. So the concept of the darkness is very important. It is a universal. Our soul all together. Just 5 minutes ago, some professor, doctor said about that the English version of a secret doctrine, Russian version of secret doctrine, something like that. He said, but it doesn't matter. The important thing is our soul. Our soul is universal. The same. So in this stanza and fifth sloka, I hope we think deeply more every time. Whenever we get up in the morning, we listen to bird songs. something like that. That's a soul. That's like our soul. So in our seminar team and the theosophical area people, we focus on our souls. My major is physics, but physics has no essence. Yesterday I said no essence. Our soul is more important. Your soul is more important. So we think deeply more about the darkness, concept of darkness. This is why important the stanza 1, Sloka 5th. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Господин Хванг, огромное спасибо.
Mr. Hwan, thank you. Your opinion was really important to us. We have comments from Vladimir Yary, Moscow, Russia. The question of darkness, when it comes to HPV, she has already described it in the Stanza 1, Sloka 5. She can help us, she helps us understand what is darkness. There are 3 examples.
Do you want to answer about that? She mentions as the Paranishpan.
So for them, darkness is so darkness for the mind and your senses is the darkness. And the same goes for scientists when we talk about the dark matter. But maybe that's not true, because the darkness is the absolute light. And if that's true, for the person who studies, for a clairvoyant, this is the absolute light. And for the person who hasn't yet studied it well, it's just in the afternoon. So, like Buddha told us that the darkness comes from our unknowing, and HPP, so darkness basically describes the light for us. So thank you very much. We would like to hear comments from our partner and friend from France, Paris, Brigitte Taquin. Please, Brigitte, are you here?
Yeah.
We would like to hear your opinion on this matter.
On the idea of darkness, I mean, we're talking about darkness, which could be understood as the absence of light. And we don't know quite what light is. So about Paranishpana, we see in the secret doctrine, the condition, page 53, the condition of Paranishpana without Paramartha, a self-analyzing consciousness, Swasam Vedana, is no bliss, but simply extinction for 7 eternities. And she says further, it is only with a mind clear and undarkened by personality and an assimilation of the merit of manifold existences devoted to being in its collectivity, the whole living and sentient universe, that one gets rid of personal existence, merging into becoming one with the absolute and continuing in full possession of Paramartha. So in a note on the same page, say, hence non-being is absolute being in esoteric philosophy. In the tenets of the latter, even Adi Buddha, first of or primeval wisdom, is while manifested in one sense an illusion, Maya, since all the gods, including Brahma, have to die at the end of the age of Brahma. The abstraction called Parabrahm alone, whether we call it Ein Sof or the unknowable, being the one absolute reality, the one secondless existence is Advaita, without a second, and all the rest is Maya, teaches the Advaita philosophy. So, about darkness, I don't know, there could be a lot of things to say, but also about light, about time. Time and space start at the third logos. The mind of the human being is connected to that third logos. We have a mind because we live in time and space. So to try to imagine what is beyond is very difficult, but not impossible according to secret doctrine. So we have to get rid of all the elements that our mind has gathered during thousands of incarnations, and to have an idea of that, how suppose it, to possess Paramartha. That's all I have to say for the moment on that theme.
Дорогая Бриджит, огромное спасибо, что особенно спасибо.
Dear Bridget, thank you very much. And thank you for living at some point at the Secret Doctrine and sharing your feeling, your perception of how you feel, what you feel about the darkness and about the third logos, etc. Let us not skip the boundless steps. So since we are in the first stanza, we are talking about the beginning of the first logos, which is not manifested yet. And now I would like to listen to the feedback on the first stanza of Sloka by Sergei Vitalyevich Kolganov, Associate Professor of Philosophy Chair, Moscow State Aviation University, Moscow. The floor is yours. Dear friends, I would like to quote the Sloka. Darkness alone filled the boundless all, for Father, Mother, and Son were once more one, and the Son had not awakened yet for the new will and his pilgrimage thereon. Well, as for me, I'm thinking why the Son goes again and again back to this world of the conditioned existence. Why does it happen? What for? Of course, not only for sleeping. And as strange as it might seem, the answers to these questions we might find in Nikolai Alexandrovich Berdyaev's works, who was saying that the cult of sacred, of the saint that was so important for Russia and the Russian culture, which was necessary to our compatriots to save themselves in order to plunge back to the darkness, fortunately. Yet we had to add to this cult of something sacred, the cult of genius. We had to save ourselves, but come to an end being a genius. This is the ideal of
the Russian idea, Russian person, two in one. It's like Lomonosov and Sergei Radonersky, the saint person. It's Mendeleev and Serafim Sarovsky, two in one, saint and genius. Lomonosov and Mendeleev are needed, of course, not only the saint. Why? Because from the point of view of philosophical concept by Erdaev, there is divine nothing, which is primordial, even in relation to God. And this divine nothing, chaos or darkness, is the warrant of the self-expression of everything. If it did not exist, there would be only cycles of repeating of the same things. So accordingly, a human being, while developing, while existing in the material world, the human being, a man, should manifest his creative abilities. We can find similar ideas that Max Handel, the author of cosmological concept of horizon crisis, who writes that continue during the whole process of evolution, all periods of globes, races, those who do not improve themselves, do not evolve, start to fall behind and degenerate. Only those who are flexible, plastic, those who try to adapt to new forms, corresponding to the new boundaries of the expanding consciousness, they are bound to survive and evolve and exist and continue their way. The progress is not only development, not only involution and evolution. There is a third factor, creating triad, which is involution, evolution, and epigenesis, which means that the shape was built by the evolution spirit, entered it with involution, yet the means for development and improvement is epigenesis. In order to become independent creator of the future, for a man it is needed to be broad in his studies, become a personality, become an individual, not only imitator. And the pioneers in science always face the factor of epigenesis, which is present in different spheres of nature. Thank you very much, Sergei Vitalyevich Kolganov, Moscow, Russia. And now I would like to point out a little point. You started your speech with the question, why the sun would get born again? Why would he move? Why? What for? What is the purpose of it? I can answer this question. To complete. If the beginning of evolution is the beginning of Manvantara and the wandering, the pilgrimage started, it should be finished in order to pass to the new cycle. Otherwise, there is no sense if something is not completed. That's why there is a great beginning and the great ending. When does it happen? When all these three elements, which you enumerated, evolution, involution, and the third one that Yelena Petrovna didn't write about, epigenesis, they get together in order to complete, because then we understand, then there is one notion, evolution, and those two which separates it, as the time separates eternity, they are its part. Thank you very much. Let me invite to share his opinion, one person very special to us, Frank Meitermeyer, Germany, Berlin. Dear Frank, could you share your feedback on Sloka 5, Stanza 1? You're welcome.
What is interesting to me is that the threefold power, which is described here as Father, Mother, Son, that reminds me to the Christian scheme of Trinity. But the Christian scheme is now not Father, Mother, Son, but Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. So there is a change here, which may be important for all people who are interested in the history of religions and Christianity. And what is important that what is connected to darkness is also the concept of the central sun. There is a central sun which is probably beyond all other concepts. And this concept of central sun is only dealt a little bit in the secret doctrine, but it is mentioned there. And that would be another point of interest for further research. That is all at the moment.
Господин Майтермейер, огромное спасибо за ваш...
Dear Frank, thank you very much for your feedback, for your comment. It was very interesting to hear. Of course, there is certain beauty in it and what is written. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Turley, who graduated from the Moscow State University of International Relations, the Faculty and Institute of the European Studies. And I would like him to comment on what has just Frank told us. Frank is a representative of the European country with Christian tradition. Europe was the place where the contemporary theosophy was founded. Now we are talking about the New World Order. Yet we should remember the origins. It is very interesting that Frank exactly brought the subject of the Christian Trinity. It's logical and wonderful. There are many other parallels, not in this local comments by Elena Petrovna. Yet at different levels, this Trinity could be followed. This Father unmanifested, Mother half manifested, Son, and we can find the parallels with the Kabbalah and principles of not manifested, the not manifested that we cannot talk about, that we can only think apotheically through neglection, as it is the tradition in this kind of culture. And other synonyms, Adi Buddha, that was mentioned to the doctrine of Sabhava, that Elena Petrovna tells about in the further stanzas, the same unmanifested principle. Some researchers call faith this unmanifested principle, and Elena Petrovna wrote about it as well. What drew my attention is what happens from the moment where the three were one. What happens after we see that then the secret doctrine unrolls, but there is also theogenesis as appendix to the secret doctrine, and there is the continuation of this situation. And it's interesting to know that there is a Sloka that the Great Mother called for the father and told, all my endeavor of previously rejected son is completed, and now I'm going back to you. And he, the son, will reign over my of the peoples, and then the gate between two worlds close, evolutionary predefined for the man. Because of this gate, for some time the man was all alone and had no connection with the higher worlds. But at some point, a man should realize that this higher triad, higher trinity exists, and follow the will of avatar of evolution. When he obeys this higher willpower of avatar, then there will be cooperation with the higher planes, and the circle will go to its completion. Of course, we can talk about the physical existence or global unmanifested father, the Mother and Son, and the Christian Trinity. We can find it in many different cultures and synonyms and traditions, European, of course, including all this was mentioned, and I think this is very interesting. I have a little comment. Let me. Yes, I have a little comment. Igor Vladimirovich opinion. Now he mentions theogenesis. Yes, there is the point that the mother says, I complete the creation, the gates are open. What does it mean? In fact, at this moment, she does not complete. She just transfers. She transfers her function. She completed her endeavor, and she transfers. What did she transfer when she talks about the completion? She transferred the light of the mind, consciousness. You know, when something gets unclear in comments or your own research, there is one source that you should refer to, and there is always an exact description of something that you didn't understand. And the source is Agni Yoga. This is the culmination of Mahatma teachings, the inner content of the secret doctrine, which makes everything clear, explains everything. And this point can be defined. When does it happen? When the pilgrim, full with forces, has the forces to continue the pilgrimage or the way. This pilgrim, the light, he didn't take anything that didn't belong to him. He didn't distort intentions. He led the events of the goodness of space. He led the mother. He freed the horses of young Kogans, the slow Ithilhat, and possessed his only possessions at that moment. Which possessions did he have? The light. What light is it? It is the sun or the mind, and this is the only possessions that we may have and talk about. And this is a very interesting turn, as in the first stanza of the fifth sloka, and very interesting that you mentioned this, because I was not going to talk about it, yet it just went so good with the matters we're talking about. It's wonderful. Thank you. Now I would like to listen to the feedback by Mr. Khmurkin, Moscow, Russia, our young researcher. Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Well, I have so many thoughts and insights during our discussion. I'm just thrilled, and I don't know if I have enough time to express it all. Well, to continue what was said at the beginning of our discussion, we talked about time. Pavlovich Proshupkin also mentioned the time, but directly in this text, the time is not mentioned. Here, what will help us? the language, and some linguistic thoughts. Well, we see Kala Chakra calendar quite regularly, and Kala Chakra in Sanskrit has two parts, Kala and Chakra. Chakra means wheel, and Kala with long R in the beginning means time. And talking about Kala or time, I would like to say a couple of words. In Sanskrit, there are two kinds of Kala, with a short R and with a long sound R. And these words are close in their origins, because maybe one word came out of another. When we're talking about the short version, we mean something not very clear, something not very defined, but a long sound word, which is the hair of this unclarity, has a different meaning and is translated as black or dark or something of a darker shade, maybe dark blue or any dark color, which also means certain dullness and subtle gloom and something dark. And that's what was said before, that it's totally unclear whatever we say about time. This is very interesting. And so in the first stanza, fifth sloka in the Manu laws, there is a sloka which also corresponds somehow to the topics that we described. Now I'm reading in Sanskrit.
Прасуптам ива сарвадаха. Значит, какой перевод?
So what would be the translation of this verse? This universe was totally in darkness, unclear, uncognizable, has no defined features, impossible to understand by mind, indefinite, and plunged into slumber. And you see, the ideas are kind of similar. We're talking about something total, about darkness, about something boundless, about slumber. And we see some images which somehow correspond to our Dzyan Sloka. And in the text, it's very interesting that for darkness, there is another word used, tamas. Being plunged in tamas, some kind of darkness. Tamas, a word, this is the philologist's approach. They start to look for the origins, for etymology of the roots of the word, and the tam root, and I really did my research, my homework, but for the shade of something dark, and by the way, the Russian word tima, darkness, and Sanskrit tamas, you see that they clearly have the same ancestor. But for darkness, it also means ignorance, arrogance, and other bad things. And there's also tam verb root, which means suffocate or hold your breath. And here we approach the matter of cycles that Sergei Pavlovich Rashupkin mentioned. What is breathing? Breathing is a cyclic process, and when it ends, when the breathing, we can use the verb tam. And I think that even linguists are there with us and showing us the ways for future pondering over this. We have some comments, please, Igor Vladimirovich, just 10 seconds. You know, yesterday when I was showing the glossary, I think I didn't mention the word Sergina, which might be coming from Asurta. And in the dictionary, it was said that it is something wrapped in the darkness. And in the Agni Yoga, and from Vedic tradition, we know that the mother of the world hid her face. And how did she hide it? Maybe in the darkness. Thank you very much. It is very interesting. And also very interesting about the holding the breath. What could it be connected to? I suppose the prana power, which is through the human being's lungs and which nurtures the subtle body. Prana has its raison d'être, its reason to be. And its reason is jiva, is forehead. And forehead is in aum. When you were singing the verse, thank you very much. It was so unexpected to hear the verses in Sanskrit at our Theosophical Congress. And I heard you were withholding your breath and then continuing the sound. All this is symbolical and wonderful. You know, if we adopt a systemic approach, we will hear and recognize the symbol. By our imagination, we'll be able to reproduce them, and then we will be able to understand. This is the insight that came to me after your comment. As a matter of fact, the great aum is the psychic energy which nurtures by prana. And what do we come to? It was hidden. It was getting together. It was all in the process of formation. And then it was transferred to sun, to the ray, to the central sun, Frank told about. So the psychic energy is the synthesis of all the radiations, and it can be perceived only if the centers are ready to receive it. Psychic energy receives the power from space, symbolically, which means mother, that gives life, that gives life to birth. And forehead is a magnet, it's law, it manifests this great energy. How does it happen? There is something that who is responsible for this acquisition. What is it? It is Kundalini. Getting back to Vladimir Vasilievich's presentation today when he mentioned Kundalini Shakti, this is
энергия, которая действует через центр у основания позвоночника. А знаете, как она действует у высоких духов? Она действует через сердце.
That can lead us to the higher spirits, and yet it goes through the heart. And this heart, as the basis for monad, transfers light, mind, forehead, our mind capabilities. Yet this inertia should be brought to life. Nobody needs inertia nowadays. It's a different epoch. What happens? What occurs? The living word which brings life. And then we speak simply, and we can find the right place for every intricate term in this evolutionary system. And then we can only talk about the life, because we are this life, we are this knowledge, we are this unmanifested flame. Everything becomes clear, easy, because I am Brahma. We are this. There are no mysteries, and we understand that the psychic energy is boundless and limitless in its manifestations and qualities, because as many consciousness there are, as many kinds of psychic energy there are. And the floor is for Vladimir Vasilyevich Yari. Well, I was just in these images beyond all forms now. Let me sum up a little. Now we are talking about the spirit beyond forms. This is the first stanza. And if you continue to follow this logic of the spirit beyond forms, we are talking about the causeless cause, the cause for everything. And since the cause is causeless, in the fifth sloka, we can see only one. There is a causeless cause that is being expressed here, the causeless cause for Maya, because Sloka 5 tells us about undifferentiated world where the time begins, the illusion begins, and it will be Maya's phenomena, which means Tamas. This is darkness. Exactly what I told in the beginning, that darkness for our mind, Tamas, this is something that is always in darkness. We can also say that that son that was there with mother and father, the one, he was in darkness. Why? Because he was unconscious. Because that son should go through the evolutionary path and plunge, dive completely in the matter. And only there, in this matter, after having suffered, he can ascend. This is why he goes to the new universe. He manifests it, and in it, in this universe, he should make his first step. But in the beginning, he is not aware. He's unconscious. What is it? This is that the consciousness has, the consciousness of those who are going to incarnate. This is the reason for skunk, the causeless cause, or the darkness. You remember they are in the darkness, three of them. The darkness for mind. This is the reason, the cause for skunk, the cause for all the desires. This is what it is about. And that reason or cause for our desires will become the next. In the fourth sloka, the fourth stanza, on the prototypes plane, it will become the cause. And when the sun appears from mother's, from the universe mother's bottom and forehead, and then, considering that darkness, he will become step by step aware. He will have the power of that light, the light of which he is the bearer. And with this light, further on, progressively, he will reach the awareness and realization. And here he will need patience and obedience to the law, because the sun is the bearer of the law of light. But by getting deeper and deeper in Maya, in illusion, the matter, through time, he should reach the freedom, because the time is that illusion. And in the time, the skankas, or the desires to live, to feel, to live through senses, this is Maya or illusion that he has to overcome. Or get, just by getting the power of the skunks, the attributes of the personality, he should get it. And with this strength, receive the power to ascend, to go back. Paramartha. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Vladimir Yari, Moscow School of Theosophy. Dear friends, I'd like to give the floor to a friend from the US, Doctor on Metaphysics, Madam Foster, Michelina Foster. We are waiting for your comments. We are waiting for your words, and we are waiting for your experience sharing. Thank you very much for finding time, allocating time for this meeting. We're happy to hear you.
Thank you. There are so many lights sitting there around the table and behind the table and in front of the table, and it's beautiful. But light and darkness seems to be only based on our ability to see it. A blind man can't see the sun. That would blind someone else. As the light travels through us, light and life and mind enlighten us. And here we find the beauty. I think sometimes that what we call darkness is the absolute light. And as it reflects onto the physical plane, the substance of mother, it actually becomes the shadow. So we're the shadow and the light is yet to come. The light comes between us. I think the prodigal son story of the New Testament tells why the son has to travel out. The son leaves the father's home and has all his possessions at first. And then as slowly he finds that they aren't worth it on this incarnation. He has many, and he travels around all over and through. As he goes back, he takes back the thoughts, the feelings, the essence that he had when he came here, when he came to the lower physical plane. He brings it back to the Father's house, and it enriches all of us that are yet to be born from the Father and the Mother into the Son. Bless you all. Thank you.
Дорогая Мишелина,
Dear
огромное
Micheline, thank you so much. Your feelings that are formed in these words with these connotations, they are the foundation. I feel that this is the foundation. I always feel comfort when I hear you speak, and this foundation gives us the warmth that we're seeking. In all your comments, we can see this warmth and light, and it's based on the experience of not one, but several incarnations. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your comments. Dear friends, and I'd like to give the floor to another speaker in terms of the feelings regarding the Sloka. If you were able to understand the way the discussion is going, we are still getting back to the most relevant points that speakers have dwelled upon. We are getting back to the thoughts, and these energies, they are mixed, and it's like a puzzle. We can see the picture, the general picture on the table, but we're missing a very important opinion that was voiced yesterday. This is the opinion by Volnov, the city of Moscow. We'll be happy to hear you. Please take the floor. Dear friends, I'd like to make a couple of points. I'd like to start with the repetition. Cycles is the repetition. When I was preparing the report for yesterday, we talked about the Chronos, how it is created. It's covered. It is the non-manifested state. We were able to see it in the Sloka. There are obvious parallels, but I'd like to talk about the science. And let's have another way of looking at the science. That what am I talking about? We're talking about the dark matter. What is it? Note that darkness and dark matter, from the standpoint of science, are unobservable substances. What happened to science when it worked on the ether? The ether is unobservable, and that was the reason for excluding ether from the scientific research. And the science repeats itself. It sees the darkness, but it cannot exclude it from the research. So there is no logic. It's contradiction of the development of science, but the science cannot see these contradictions. In its development, science is getting into dead ends, but cannot see it, and we are trying to tell it to the science. Why cannot science see these contradictions? Because of absolutization of its own picture of the world. Science is unable to reflect upon itself, upon its own borders. What is on the basis of the methodology? We have the second principle. It's the repetition of events, methodological principle, the reproduction and the repetition. What does it lead to in terms of time? We build our understanding of time. We see it as a homogeneous construct of unique events. There's no uniqueness. Science needs repetition. If the event is unique, it's outside of science. What is uniqueness in terms of time? It's the second form of time. It's kairos, according to Greeks. There is chronos and kairos. Kairos is something that is unpredictable moment, according to Vernadsky. There is no kairos in contemporary science. The constitution of scientific knowledge excludes the possibility of kairos in general. Despite the fact that we, or rather the science, have to talk about time as a linear thing, the measurability of time is possible through the cyclic events, but it doesn't mean that time is cyclic. It doesn't mean that at all. Time in science is linear due to its homogeneity, but there is no other way of measuring it. That is why we measure time through the repetitive events, like cycles around the sun. But the time is not of linear nature. Another important point. There is another interesting phenomenon. At the time of Pavel Florensky, and he talks about the time in a particular way. We can pray or we can dream, and if we look at what is happening with us there, then we'll be able to see it. It's a particular effect of the time. Briefly, the cause and consequence, they change places. When we're awake, we move from the cause to the consequence. When we're in a dream, when we're praying, the cause and the consequence change places. Time doesn't stop, it doesn't go in the reverse way from the past to the future, from the future to the past. This time still goes from the past to the future, but the cause and the consequence change places. What conclusion can we make through that? Florensky is trying to get to the cyclical time when there is movement from the source, from the origin from the cause to the consequence, and vice versa. But this is possible only when we unite the physical and the thin reality, because praying state, dreaming state is a particular type of state. But we can get back to the cyclical time only through that. Otherwise, we just get into the linear time that is artificial, and it was created in an artificial way so that it would be measurable, so that we could measure the movement of the dead matter. What does Florensky say? He says that we do not understand the space correctly. We look at it from the analytical standpoint. We measure it through length. He says that we do not see the phenomenon of the united matter, and that is why the science cannot see the world as a united thing. It cannot unify four fundamental points, and Einstein tried to do that. But Vernadsky could build the united theory of science, but based on other foundations, where life is an indispensable part of that. We don't understand from the scientific point of view the reality correctly, because we've chosen a wrong way of measuring it. We have the analytical thinking that doesn't understand the united, the notion of unity. But Florensky says, let's do everything the other way around. Let's take cube as the way of measuring space. So we use a single one thing for measuring space. Right now, we use seconds, minutes to measure time. It's not adequate. We need to take a cycle which has the movement from the cause to the consequence and vice versa. If we take that as an example and use it, and if we get back to the secret doctrine, they have only the cycle, time, and eternity there. There is no linear time there, because linear time is an artificial form. It's of mechanical nature. It doesn't lead us anywhere. It makes humans less human. We denied God, soul, and right now we're trying to deny human beings. This is the digitalization moving towards the meta-universe, the digitalization of human beings, and denying the possibility of being free. If we project this logic towards the picture of time, we deny Kairos, we deny everything, and human beings start living in the linear kind of time, and they are no longer humans. So we can take a cycle as the way for the purpose of measuring time. And when Vernadsky is talking about time, he says that time is alive, and it is within cycles, and this transformation is needed, and we need to do it as fast as possible. And only then we'll be able to see the reality in its fullness and its completeness. And in a particular sense, Kairos can be understood as the connection between the material and the spiritual. As praying is working with the Kairos, we move to the thin state, and we complete the cycle, and Kairos completes the cycle. We talked about the triangle, about the balance of three forms of time. Dear friends, thank you. Thank you so much, dear friends, who were able to hear Volnov Ilya Nikolaevich, candidate, or rather PhD in Technical Sciences, Director of Technological Support of the Moscow Polytechnical University, Moscow, Russia. Thank you so much. Dear friends, in the context of what Ilya had just told us, this moving from digitalization, or rather moving towards digitalization, there is an opinion that something can save us from that. And what is it? The growth of psychic energy. Only, and then the first thing that we need, the precondition of the growth of the psychic energy, it's the application of the psychic energy. Why don't we use it? Why don't we apply it? We are way too lazy. Laziness destroys. What is the best way to accumulate the psychic energy? Keep being silent. The theosophic notion can be regarded from another standpoint. The united darkness that filled everything is the silence of the sun. It's the accumulation. It's the true accumulation of the psychic energy that we'll be able to see through other cycles. It's the accumulation of the fiery energy.
Кристаллизовываться в отложениях. А кристалл огненной энергии, он начинает увеличиваться и расти. То есть вот этот процесс роста. И а в чем растрата тогда происходит? Как мы можем определить, когда человек
How can I see if someone has spent all the psychic energy? Human beings can no longer fly. We are trying to remember the past. We can fly in the dream, when we dream. And sometimes human beings cannot even move. If we focus on the consciousness accumulation of the energy, the silence is great, and that is the origin of this fiery energy. As for the psychic energy that is manifested here, is has the purifying forces. The more of them, the more powers to act we have. We can understand if we are pure or not and what we can do. Vladimir, I give the floor. Your final comments regarding the fifth Sloka, the first stanza, and all the opinions that we have heard before. I give the floor.
Already partly I mentioned this, the whole idea. I would like to say that in this stanza, we get an opportunity to understand one's own lack of knowledge. Any of our breeding of thought is connected to Maya, to illusion. Because this is the law. We should achieve the way to the world, to the light through this. So the cause of reason, the cause of our lack of knowledge shows that we need to draw attention to this. When we were speaking about the first stanza, this causeless cause, a reason for our ignorance, is something that we should learn. We need to grow feelings in ourselves. which would not have any form or image. This is basically, this is darkness, but we need to enter this. We won't be able to teach ourselves, because it will be in the grain of, it is the monada of each of you. With the accumulation, and for this, all the program is contained. It is the other side of the Buddha, which is called monada. It is only our achievement, our aiming for the future, the movement of our thought, the creativity of our thought, which is in the potence. The potence of the grain of spirit. And the state of spirit is outside the form. And if we started directly the secret doctrine, we need to feel this feeling in ourselves. Only then will we be able to differentiate further, understanding from the general to the specific. And here in the fifth shloka is the strength of our aspiration, which is woken up by the call. And the call wakes our conscience, our consciousness. And with the help of this woken up consciousness, the memory of the spirit, we are able to obscure from this country, from this darkness. We will come from it to light. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vladimir Yary, Moscow. Dear friends, let us sum up the round table. So the fifth shloka, first stanza, it's called darkness alone filled the boundless all, for father, mother, and son were once more one, and the son had not awakened yet for the new wheel and his pilgrimage thereon. We have not touched upon one very important issue regarding the comments of the fifth shloka, the notion of the manifested mother. Nobody paid attention to this. Maybe there was not enough time, but it's interesting. How was it manifested? There is this idea which I will speak about at the end of my comments, about planes of being. The united darkness covered everything. We understand that the stanza is the first manifestation of the universe, which reflects all the cosmogony of the non-manifested reflection of the second plane. It filled the endless everything, for father, mother, and son were united. So these three were here all together. And here the third shroud is somewhat raised. So this darkness filled everything because these three were together. So there was nothing to separate these three, to separate this eternity. And the sun had not woken up yet for the pilgrimage. Why? Because the birthing mother was only semi-manifested at this point of time of the evolutionary cycle. And when will she be manifested? When will the sun be? Now, look here. What is the idea? the woman
творческим источником.
becomes a search, an endless search of creativity. This notion of mother only when she gives birth. Before that, she is only semi-manifested. And in order for this energy to be assimilated, in order for the person to become, to get reasonable, we as the semi-manifested mother should give birth to our own son. We should give birth to our own light. We should become conscious. This is what is mentioned here. What has a united manifestation here of the oncogonic ray. And this monadic foundation will begin to be manifested then when the mother is manifested finally, when this light of reason will shine upon us. The fifth shloka, number 5, corresponds to manas, corresponds to a symbol of human. So this is why we need to, and the time has come for that epoch to become conscious. Thank you very much.
Дорогие делегаты Конгресса, научное
Dear Congress delegates, dear research group, thank you so much to everybody who worked at the round table. Philosophic knowledge enters the world. It is scientifically based, and it has a unique
ответить совершенно по-новому на
to
вопрос.
answer in a new way the question, to answer any question from a new point of view. Why? Because if we know the fundamental knowledge, possess the fundamental knowledge which was the basis of Elena Blavatsky's secret doctrine, we will have this ability to understand, to integrate the great theosophic knowledge. Because the demand and the relevance of studying the secret doctrine is clear. When studying the scientific and fundamental doctrine, we ascertain the time of our great compatriot Elena Blavatsky. And of course, we accept the world science and culture. So everybody who was present at the scientific symposium, whose thought is in the final doctrine, we all have made a contribution in this system, in the comprehension of her doctrine. Dear Congress delegates, and all of you who are watching us online, we are drawing to an end. The Congress of 2022 in Nizhny Novgorod is coming to the end. And we will be looking forward to seeing you all at the 7th International Congress, which will take place in the capital of our Russia, in the best city in the world, Moscow. And we will demonstrate a unique medallion that belongs to Elena Blavatsky.